Self-mastery. Control your mind before it controls you. Before this video begins, understand something important. Most people are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by the chaos inside their own minds. In this video, you will discover why your thoughts sometimes become your greatest enemy, how emotions secretly control your decisions, why overthinking drains your energy, and how mentally strong people train themselves to stay calm under pressure. You will learn how to discipline your emotions, silence mental noise, build inner control, and take back authority over your own life. If you truly want to become mentally stronger, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs this message, and write in the comments, "I control my mind." Now sit back, focus carefully, and listen closely, because the person who masters the mind eventually masters everything else. Most people wake up every morning already mentally defeated. Not because life attacked them, but because their own thoughts did. Before they even leave their bed, their minds begin replaying fear, anxiety, regrets, comparisons, and imaginary disasters that have not even happened yet. Their body is free, but their mind is chained. And the terrifying part is this: many people live their entire lives without realizing they are prisoners of their own mental habits. Self-mastery begins the moment you understand one brutal truth. Your mind is a tool, not a master. The problem is that most people never learn how to hold the tool correctly. Instead of controlling their thoughts, they obey every emotion. Instead of directing attention, they let distractions pull them in every direction. Instead of acting with awareness, they react automatically like machines programmed by fear, anger, insecurity, and impulse. Look carefully at the average person. One negative comment ruins their entire day. One rejection destroys their confidence. One stressful situation makes them panic. Why? Because they never trained the mind, they trained the body, they trained social behavior, they trained appearance, but they never trained the internal, where all battles are truly won or lost. Your external life is always shaped by your internal state. A chaotic mind creates a chaotic life. A disciplined mind creates a powerful life. This is why two people can face the exact same situation while reacting completely differently. One collapses emotionally while the other remains calm and focused. The difference is not luck. The difference is mental conditioning. Your mind follows patterns. Whatever you repeat emotionally becomes stronger. If you constantly feed fear, fear grows. If you constantly feed distraction, distraction grows. If you constantly feed insecurity, insecurity becomes your identity. The mind is like a garden. Whatever you water survives. Whatever you ignore slowly dies. But modern life is designed to destroy self-mastery. Social media trains impulsiveness. Notifications train distraction. Entertainment trains mental dependency. Endless scrolling trains emotional weakness. People no longer sit alone with their thoughts because silence terrifies them. The moment silence appears, hidden emotions rise to the surface. Anxiety appears. Emptiness appears. Confusion appears. So people escape into noise again. More videos, more music, more scrolling, more stimulation. But escaping yourself never creates peace. It only delays confrontation. And eventually, the mind collects years of unresolved emotional chaos until a person no longer feels in control of themselves. This is why self-mastery requires isolation at times. Not permanent isolation from people, but moments of intentional separation from noise. You cannot hear your true thoughts in a world that constantly screams for your attention. Some of the strongest minds in history understood this deeply. They spent time alone, not because they hated people, but because they understood clarity is born in silence. When you sit quietly, without distraction, something uncomfortable happens. You begin observing yourself honestly. You notice how unstable your attention has become. You notice how addicted you are to stimulation. You notice how emotions control your reactions. At first, this realization feels painful, but awareness is the beginning of power. A person who cannot observe themselves cannot control themselves. Most people think self-mastery means suppressing emotions. That is wrong. Suppression creates internal pressure. True mastery means observing emotions without becoming controlled by them. Imagine anger entering your mind like fire. The average person immediately reacts. They shout, insult, attack, or make destructive decisions. But a disciplined mind pauses first. It watches the emotion instead of obeying it. That pause changes everything. Your life is shaped by the decisions you make during emotional moments. One uncontrolled moment can destroy years of progress. One impulsive decision can ruin relationships, opportunities, reputations, and futures. Weak minds react instantly. Strong minds observe first. This is why emotional control is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Not academic intelligence, not verbal intelligence. Inner intelligence. The ability to remain calm while chaos surrounds you. The ability to think clearly while emotions demand reaction. The ability to stay disciplined when comfort invites weakness. Self-mastery also means controlling attention. Attention is your most valuable resource because wherever attention goes, energy follows. If your attention is constantly stolen by negativity, drama, comparison, and distraction, your life slowly becomes shaped by those things. Most people do not realize they are being psychologically programmed every single day. The content you consume becomes thoughts. Thoughts become emotions. Emotions become behaviors. Behaviors become identity. This is why protecting your mind is as important as protecting your body. You would regular have not allow poison into your food every day, yet many people consume mental poison constantly through negativity, toxic environments, destructive entertainment, and endless comparison. Then they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted. Your mind absorbs everything repeatedly exposed to it, and eventually it becomes difficult to separate your true voice from the noise surrounding you. A person without self-mastery becomes emotionally manipulated by everything around them. Trends manipulate them, opinions manipulate them, fear manipulates them, desire manipulates them. They constantly change direction because they have no internal foundation. But when you master yourself, something powerful happens. You stop reacting emotionally to everything. You stop needing validation from everyone. You stop chasing approval. You stop allowing temporary feelings to control permanent decisions. And slowly, you begin developing something rare in modern society: inner stability. Inner stability is dangerous because it makes you difficult to control. People who master themselves are not easily manipulated by fear tactics, social pressure, or emotional games. They think independently. They move intentionally. They remain calm while others panic. This is why disciplined individuals often appear intimidating without trying. Calmness itself becomes power. But understand this clearly: self-mastery is not built in comfort. It is built through resistance. Every time you resist impulsive behavior, you strengthen discipline. Every time you control emotional reactions, you strengthen awareness. Every time you stay focused despite distraction, you strengthen mental power. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. The problem is that modern culture worships comfort. People want results without discomfort, confidence without struggle, peace without discipline, strength without sacrifice. But the mind does not become powerful accidentally. It becomes powerful through repeated intentional effort. Just like muscles grow under resistance, the mind grows under challenge. This is why difficult moments are valuable. Pain reveals the areas where you lack control. Stress exposes mental weakness. Pressure reveals emotional instability. Most people run from discomfort immediately, but mentally strong people study themselves during difficult moments. They ask, why did this trigger me? Why did I react emotionally? Why did I lose control? That level of self-awareness transforms people completely, because the greatest battle is never outside you. The greatest battle is always internal. You versus distraction. You versus fear. You versus laziness. You versus emotional chaos. You versus the weaker version of yourself that constantly seeks comfort instead of growth. And the truth is brutal. If you cannot control your own mind, someone else eventually will. Advertisers will control it. Social media will control it. Fear will control it. Other people's opinions will control it. Your environment will control it. That is why self-mastery is freedom. The ability to think clearly without external manipulation is one of the rarest forms of power left in this world. And yet most people never develop it because it requires consistency, not motivation, consistency. Motivation changes daily. Discipline remains even when emotions disappear. A mastered mind acts based on principles, not feelings. This is why mentally disciplined individuals continue improving while others quit repeatedly. They understand feelings are temporary, but habits create destiny. Every repeated action becomes part of your identity. If you repeatedly break promises to yourself, your mind learns weakness. If you repeatedly keep promises to yourself, your mind learns trust. Confidence is not built by motivational speeches. Confidence is built by evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself even when life becomes difficult. And once you reach that level, something changes inside you, permanently. You stop fearing challenges the same way. You stop collapsing emotionally over small problems. You stop needing constant reassurance because you know your mind no longer controls you blindly. You became the observer, the director, the authority inside your own life. But this transformation does not happen overnight. It happens slowly through daily mental discipline, through silence, through awareness, through emotional control, through intentional thinking, through resisting impulses nobody else sees. The strongest victories are often invisible victories. The moment you choose patience instead of anger, focus instead of distraction, discipline instead of excuses, awareness instead of emotional reaction. These moments seem small, but they quietly rebuild your entire identity from the inside out, and most people around you will never even notice the transformation happening within you. They will only notice one day that your energy feels different, your presence feels calmer, your decisions feel sharper, your emotions feel controlled, your silence feels powerful. Because self-mastery changes the way you move through the world. You become less reactive, less desperate, less emotionally dependent. And as your internal world becomes stronger, your external world slowly begins changing too. Continue training your mind daily, because the moment you stop controlling it, the world will gladly do it for you. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs mental strength, and write in the comments, "My mind serves me, not controls me." Most people underestimate how dangerous an undisciplined mind can become over time. At first, the damage appears small: a little procrastination, a little emotional weakness, a little overthinking before sleep, a little fear before taking action. But years later, those small patterns evolve into an identity. Suddenly, the person no longer trusts themselves. They hesitate constantly. They doubt every decision. They avoid challenges. They become mentally exhausted before even trying. And the tragedy is that many people believe this is simply who they are, when in reality, it is only the result of repeated mental conditioning. Your mind adapts to whatever you repeatedly tolerate. If you tolerate excuses, excuses become normal. If you tolerate distraction, focus becomes painful. If you tolerate emotional chaos, peace feels unfamiliar. This is why self-mastery requires brutal honesty with yourself, not the kind of honesty people perform publicly, but private honesty. The type that forces you to confront your habits without excuses. The type that asks difficult questions. Why do you avoid silence? Why do you seek constant stimulation? Why do you abandon discipline so quickly? Why do you keep returning to behaviors that destroy your peace? These questions matter because the quality of your life depends on the quality of your self-awareness. Most people want external change without internal examination. They want confidence without understanding insecurity. They want peace without confronting emotional addiction. They want clarity while feeding confusion every day. But the mind cannot become clear if your life constantly feeds chaos into it. Look at how many people cannot sit quietly for even 10 minutes without reaching for a phone. That is not harmless behavior. That is dependency. The inability to remain mentally present with yourself is one of the clearest signs of lost inner control. Silence exposes everything people try to escape. It exposes unresolved emotions, buried fears, internal emptiness, regret, loneliness, insecurity. That is why many people fear being alone more than they fear losing themselves. But the person who learns to sit calmly with their own mind develops something extraordinary: emotional independence. Emotional independence means your emotional state is no longer controlled by external circumstances every second. Compliments do not inflate your ego. Criticism does not destroy your identity. Rejection does not make you hate yourself. Delays do not make you panic. You remain grounded because your stability no longer depends entirely on outside validation. And this is one of the greatest psychological advantages a human being can develop, because once your emotions stop controlling your behavior, your decisions become clearer. Most destructive decisions are emotional decisions made in temporary moments. People ruin relationships because of temporary anger. They destroy opportunities because of temporary fear. They quit goals because of temporary discomfort. They sabotage themselves because of temporary insecurity. Then later, they regret decisions that only existed because they lacked emotional control in one moment. A mastered mind understands a powerful truth. Emotions are visitors, not leaders. They arrive, they intensify, they fade. But if you treat every emotion as absolute truth, your life becomes unstable. Imagine allowing the weather to control every decision you make. One storm appears and you stop moving entirely. That is how many people live emotionally. One difficult day destroys their discipline. One insult destroys their confidence. One failure destroys their momentum. But mentally disciplined people understand that emotions fluctuate while principles remain. This is why routines are powerful. Routines protect you from emotional inconsistency. When your mind says, "I don't feel like it," discipline answers, "Do it anyway." When fear says, "Wait longer," discipline answers, "Move now." When distraction says, "Escape reality," discipline answers, "Stay focused." The strongest people are not people who always feel motivated. They are people who learned how to act correctly even when motivation disappears. That is real power. Modern society romanticizes intense motivation because motivation feels exciting, but excitement is unreliable. Self-mastery is built during ordinary days when nobody watches you, when you wake up tired but continue anyway, when you feel emotional but remain composed anyway, when your mind seeks comfort but you choose growth anyway. Those invisible moments shape identity more than dramatic moments ever will. And here is something most people never realize. Every time you resist your lower impulses, you are literally rewiring your mind. Every moment of discipline strengthens neural pathways connected to control, focus, and emotional regulation. Meanwhile, every impulsive habit strengthens mental weakness. Your brain adapts based on repetition. This means your future personality is being trained right now by your daily behaviors. You are becoming what you repeatedly practice. If you repeatedly practice distraction, you become distracted. If you repeatedly practice self-control, you become disciplined. This is why your environment matters so much. Environment silently shapes behavior. Weak environments create weak habits. Chaotic environments create chaotic thinking. Toxic environments create emotional instability. Many people attempt self-mastery while constantly surrounding themselves with things that destroy focus. Endless noise, negative people, addictive content, constant comparison. Then they wonder why peace feels impossible. Protecting your mental environment is not weakness, it is intelligence. Not everything deserves access to your attention. Attention is life force. Wherever your attention flows consistently, your identity slowly follows. This is why mentally powerful people become selective. Selective about conversations, selective about media, selective about energy, selective about what enters whether their mind daily. Because they understand something most people ignore. Your mind is programmable, and if you do not consciously program it, the world will program it for you. Fear-based media will program it. Algorithms will program it. Social pressure will program it. Consumer culture will program it. Soon you will no longer know which desires are truly yours and which were implanted through repetition. Self-mastery breaks that unconscious programming. It allows you to think independently again, to observe society without automatically obeying it, to choose intentionally instead of reacting automatically. This is why true self-control often separates you from the crowd psychologically. Not because you become arrogant, but because you stop following emotional herd behavior. While others panic, you observe. While others chase validation, you remain grounded. While others constantly react, you stay centered. Calmness becomes your advantage. And understand this carefully. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is controlled power. A lion does not need to prove strength every second. Truly powerful people rarely waste energy trying to appear powerful. Inner control naturally changes presence. People can feel when someone is mentally stable. They can feel when someone is emotionally disciplined. Because most individuals today are internally chaotic. So when they encounter someone calm, focused, and emotionally grounded, it feels rare. But reaching that state requires sacrifice. You must sacrifice constant stimulation. You must sacrifice emotional impulsiveness. You must sacrifice unhealthy attachments. You must sacrifice the version of yourself addicted to comfort. Boast of super, and many people never do this because comfort feels safe. Yet comfort slowly weakens the mind when it becomes addiction. Growth demands friction. Mental strength demands resistance. There is no shortcut around this reality. The strongest minds are forged through challenge, pressure, discipline, reflection, and repetition, not through easy living. Think about every strong person you admire. Their strength was not created during peaceful moments. It was created during struggle, during uncertainty, during pain, during moments when quitting felt easier than continuing. Hardship reveals the relationship you truly have with your own mind. Some people collapse immediately under pressure because they never trained resilience. Others become stronger because they learned how to remain mentally steady while facing discomfort. This is why adversity can either destroy you or refine you depending on your mindset. The same fire that melts weak material hardens steel. Your response to difficulty determines your transformation, and one of the clearest signs of self-mastery is the ability to remain internally composed while external chaos exists. Anyone can appear calm when life feels easy, but true discipline appears when circumstances become difficult. Can you remain patient under pressure? Can you remain focused while emotionally overwhelmed? Can you remain rational while anger rises? Can you continue forward while fear whispers failure into your mind? That is the real test, because the battle for self mastery is fought daily in ordinary moments nobody applauds, and often the most important victories are invisible to everyone except you. The moment you choose silence instead of unnecessary conflict, the moment you stop yourself from reacting impulsively, the moment you continue working while your emotions beg you to quit, the moment you walk away from something toxic even when attachment makes it painful. These moments quietly transform your identity. Little by little, your mind begins trusting you again. Your discipline becomes stronger, your emotional reactions become slower, your awareness becomes sharper, and eventually, something extraordinary happens. Peace no longer feels temporary. It becomes part of your nature. Not because life became perfect, but because you stopped allowing every external event to control your internal world. At this stage, most people begin noticing a strange shift inside themselves. The things that once controlled them start losing power. Noise becomes exhausting instead of entertaining. Drama becomes unattractive instead of exciting. Constant validation becomes unnecessary instead of addictive. And for the first time in a long time, the mind begins experiencing clarity, real clarity. Not temporary motivation created by inspirational words, but deep internal alignment. Because self mastery is not about becoming emotionless, it is about becoming internally organized. A disorganized mind wastes enormous energy. It jumps endlessly between fear and desire, doubt and excitement, distraction and ambition. One moment it wants discipline, the next moment it wants comfort. One moment it seeks peace, the next moment it creates chaos. This internal contradiction is why many people feel mentally exhausted even when they accomplish very little. Their energy is constantly leaking through internal conflict. But when the mind becomes disciplined, energy stops scattering everywhere. Focus strengthens, decisions become cleaner, emotional stability increases, and life starts feeling lighter. Not because problems disappear, but because the mind stops multiplying them unnecessarily. Most suffering is intensified by mental resistance. A difficult moment arrives, then the mind adds panic, fear, overthinking, and catastrophic imagination on top of it. Suddenly, a small challenge becomes psychological torture. This is why uncontrolled thinking destroys peace faster than reality itself. The mind has the ability to create pain even in safe environments. A person can sit inside a quiet room while mentally experiencing war inside their head. This is why mastering thought patterns changes everything. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Not every fear deserves belief. Yet many people automatically trust every thought their mind produces. Imagine treating every passing cloud as permanent truth. That is how people live mentally. One negative thought appears and instantly becomes identity. I am weak. I will fail. Nobody respects me. I am too late. I cannot change. Repeated often enough, these thoughts stop feeling like thoughts and start feeling like reality. But thoughts repeated emotionally are not always truth. They are conditioning. Self-mastery begins when you separate awareness from automatic thinking. The moment you can observe a thought without immediately identifying with it, you gain power over it. This is why meditation, reflection, and silence have existed in nearly every wisdom tradition throughout history. Not because silence magically solves problems, but because silence allows observation. Observation interrupts unconscious patterns, and unconscious patterns are what secretly control most people's lives. The average person lives reactively. Wake up, check phone, react emotionally, consume distractions, seek stimulation, repeat. Days become months, months become years, and eventually life feels empty because there was never intentional awareness guiding it. Self-mastery breaks this cycle completely. It forces you to live consciously instead of automatically, to choose deliberately instead of impulsively, to think independently instead of emotionally absorbing everything around you. And this is where real freedom begins. Freedom is not merely doing whatever you want emotionally. That often leads to self-destruction. Real freedom is the ability to govern yourself wisely, the ability to say no to impulses that weaken you, the ability to remain calm while emotions scream for reaction, the ability to delay pleasure for long-term growth. Weak minds confuse impulsiveness with freedom. Strong minds understand discipline creates freedom. A person addicted to impulses is not free. They are controlled. Controlled by cravings, controlled by emotions, controlled by habits, controlled by temporary desires. Real self-control means you decide your actions consciously instead of being dragged around psychologically by every feeling. This is why discipline often feels painful at first. You are breaking patterns your mind became addicted to. And addiction is not only about substances. People become addicted to distraction, to emotional chaos, to attention, to negativity, to victim mentality, to comfort, to procrastination. The brain always seeks familiarity, even when familiarity is destructive. That is why change feels uncomfortable. Your old identity fights to survive. The moment you begin becoming disciplined, your mind will try negotiating with weakness again. Tomorrow, just this once, you deserve a break. It does not matter. Small excuses slowly become permanent limitations. This is why self-awareness matters so much. You must learn to recognize when your own mind is sabotaging you. Sometimes your greatest enemy is not another person. It is the voice inside you constantly pulling you away from growth. And that voice becomes stronger every time you obey it without question. But something powerful happens when you begin resisting consistently. The mind slowly learns a new standard. Discipline becomes less painful. Focus becomes easier. Emotional control becomes natural. What once required enormous effort becomes part of your identity. This is why repetition matters more than intensity. Many people seek dramatic transformation overnight. They want instant confidence, instant discipline, instant peace. But real transformation is quieter than that. It happens through repeated small victories. Waking up when you promised yourself you would. Finishing tasks when nobody forces you. Staying calm during stressful conversations. Remaining focused despite distractions. Keeping promises to yourself consistently. These actions seem ordinary, but they slowly rebuild self-respect. And self-respect changes everything. Because once you truly respect yourself, you stop betraying your weight repeatedly. You stop abandoning your goals for temporary comfort. You stop tolerating environments that destroy your peace. You stop allowing emotions to control every decision. You begin protecting your mind with the same seriousness people protect valuable possessions, because you realize your mind determines the quality of your entire existence. A disciplined mind can survive difficult circumstances. An undisciplined mind can destroy a beautiful life. This is why two people can possess the same opportunities while producing completely different outcomes. One mind creates order, the other creates self-sabotage. One stays composed under pressure, the other collapses emotionally. One builds slowly with patience, the other destroys progress impulsively. The external world often reflects the internal structure of the mind controlling it. And perhaps the most dangerous thing about mental weakness is that it often appears harmless in the sales. Laziness feels comfortable, overthinking feels intelligent, emotional impulsiveness feels justified, distraction feels entertaining. But over years, these habits quietly shape destiny. A weak mind slowly loses control over life decision by decision. Meanwhile, disciplined individuals gain increasing levels of freedom because they can rely on themselves consistently. Reliability creates power. If you cannot trust yourself to follow your own decisions, confidence becomes impossible. This is why every promise you keep to yourself matters psychologically. Your brain watches your actions constantly. If you repeatedly quit, delay, and betray your own intentions, your subconscious stops trusting your words. But when you repeatedly act with discipline, your mind begins believing in your capability again. This creates internal certainty, and certainty changes the way you move through life. You hesitate less, you fear less, you recover faster from failure, because your confidence no longer depends entirely on outcomes. It depends on your ability to remain disciplined regardless of circumstances. That is real inner power, not loud confidence, not arrogance, quiet certainty, the type of certainty that remains stable even when life becomes unpredictable. And once you experience that level of self-control, you begin understanding why mentally disciplined people often seem calm in situations that overwhelm others. They trained their mind before chaos arrived. Most people wait until life becomes difficult before attempting mental discipline, but pressure only exposes the level of control you already built beforehand. You cannot suddenly become mentally strong during crisis if your habits trained weakness for years. Strength must be practiced daily before it is needed, just like soldiers train before war. The mind must train before hardship arrives. Every day is training. Every reaction is training. Every thought pattern is training. Every habit either strengthens or weakens your future self. The question is whether you are consciously building yourself or unconsciously destroying yourself little by little without noticing. And perhaps this is the hardest truth of all. Nobody is coming to save your mind except you. Not motivation videos, not temporary inspiration, not luck, not perfect circumstances. At some point, every person must decide whether they will remain a prisoner of their impulses or become the authority over their own thoughts. Because life becomes extremely dangerous when your emotions control your direction. Anger makes you destroy. Fear makes you freeze. Desire makes you lose discipline. Laziness makes you waste years. And distraction quietly steals entire futures while people barely notice it happening. The terrifying part is that destruction rarely arrives dramatically. Most lives collapse slowly. One bad habit repeated daily. One excuse repeated constantly. One emotional weakness left unchallenged for years. Until eventually, the person looks back wondering where their time, energy, confidence, and peace disappeared. But self-mastery changes that path completely. The moment you begin controlling your attention, your emotions, your reactions, and your habits, life starts moving differently. You become harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to break emotionally. Your mind stops behaving like an enemy and slowly becomes an ally. And once that happens, even difficult situations stop feeling impossible, because a disciplined mind can handle pressure that destroys weaker minds. Think about how many battles people create entirely inside their own heads. Imaginary arguments, imaginary failures, imaginary disasters. They suffer more in imagination than in reality. Their thoughts drain energy before action even begins. But the mastered mind understands something important. Not every mental storm deserves participation. Sometimes the strongest action is observation without reaction. Sometimes peace is protected not by controlling the world, but by controlling your response to it. This is why inner peace is not passive weakness. It is trained psychological strength, the ability to remain centered while life becomes unpredictable, the ability to maintain direction while emotions fluctuate, the ability to continue moving forward even when negative facts to fix focus and entirety respected. That level of control is rare because most people spend their entire lives avoiding discomfort instead of learning from it. But discomfort is a teacher. Silence is a teacher. Discipline is a teacher. Failure is a teacher. Every difficult moment reveals the parts of yourself that still require mastery. And if you stop running from those moments, they begin transforming you instead of defeating you. One day you realize you no longer react the way you used to. Small things stop disturbing your peace. Temporary emotions stop controlling your actions. External opinions stop defining your identity. You become calmer, sharper, more intentional, more aware, and slowly the chaos inside your mind begins fading away. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger internally. This is the real meaning of self-mastery. It is not perfection, it is conscious control. The ability to guide yourself instead of constantly fighting yourself. The ability to build a mind that supports your future instead of sabotaging it. And the beautiful part is this: every single day gives you another opportunity to train that power. Every moment you choose discipline over impulse, awareness over reaction, focus over distraction, you reclaim a piece of control over your life again. Little by little, thought by thought, habit by habit, decision by decision, you become someone different, someone calmer under pressure, someone stronger emotionally, someone who no longer collapses every time life becomes difficult. And when that transformation truly begins, people around you will notice it without you needing to announce anything, because real strength rarely needs noise. It reveals itself through presence, calmness, discipline, and control. So before this video ends, ask yourself honestly, are you controlling your mind, or is your mind controlling you? The answer to that question shapes your entire future. If this video gave you value, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs this message, and write in the comments, I control my mind before it controls me. Your support helps this channel continue creating powerful content that strengthens the mind and changes perspectives. And remember, every day, your mind is either becoming your greatest weapon or your greatest prison.